You're looking at it and you're saying, this isn't working the way I wanted it to. This isn't giving me the result that I wanted it to give me. But if you keep that positive attitude and you keep your mind open to possibilities, then it always ends up working out.
This is the How to Quit Working Show. Jeff Steinman believes entrepreneurship is the only true path to freedom. That's why he created the How to Quit Working Show, where you'll hear stories, insights, and inspiration from lifestyle fanatics who left their soul-sucking 9-to-5 job forever. Now, here's your host, author, entrepreneur, and ultimate lifestyle fanatic, Jeff Steinman.
Hello and welcome to the How to Quit Working Show. Today we're going to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is when things don't go the way you expect them to go. Let's not talk about when things go bad or when things don't go right, because there's no such thing as good or bad or right or wrong. There's only a bunch of different things that can happen in this world, and the way that we live a happy life and a successful life is to just figure out how to deal with those things that happen. So we're going to talk about that on the show today. I love talking about that topic. It's one that I've spent a whole lot of time trying to figure out, and I think I got a little bit of good information for you. Before we dive too much into that, I want to remind you about the How to Quit Working Circle. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you probably have already joined, but if you haven't, then you should go over to howtoquitworking.com/circle and enter your information there, because when you do that, what's going to happen is you are going to get a free video training series on how to quit your job and start a business, and you're also going to get access to our private How to Quit Working Facebook group, where you can interact with and network with other people who are just like you, working to quit their jobs and start a business. And it's just a great place to hang around with really cool people who have the same interests in mind and the same desires in life as you do. So don't forget to go over to howtoquitworking.com/circle and join the How to Quit Working Circle. I look forward to seeing you in there. Now let's talk about this whole thing today about when things don't go how you expect them to. I've been talking about this more and more lately on the show, because I think it's so important to understand when you're in the process of making a huge life transition from being in a situation where you depend on income from a job that you do with someone else, to being in a situation where you create your own income and you create your own life, and you go out into the world and figure out how you can get people to pay you money on your terms, doing the things that you want to do, things that you enjoy, and doing them when you want and how you want. And that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, when you think about it, you're listening to the show, or you're watching the show, you're probably reading a lot of other books and stuff, and listening to other podcasts and whatnot. You're doing it, you're investing a lot of time into figuring this out, because it's pretty freaking awesome. And I can tell you it is pretty freaking awesome, but it's also really freaking hard to get there. It's a lot of work, and it is absolutely a lot of work, but I would almost say more importantly, it's about changing the way that you view everything, and everything that you think in your mind probably needs to change. And the crazy thing is, you don't even know what is going on in your mind that actually needs to change. And that's why I try to bring you some of these concepts here. And I think that the biggest thing that I see folks doing was when they're starting off in a business, and I absolutely did this. I still do it in certain circumstances. I'm not perfect. But they go into a business with an idea and an expectation that it will work out in some certain way. And again, I have erased the concepts, for the most part, of good, bad, right, and wrong. Any kind of labels like that, I have pretty much just erased them from my mind. So it's hard for me to even talk about something going wrong or going bad or even going good or going well. It's just not a framework that I use to describe my world anymore, because of this concept that I'm talking about here. And the concept is just this idea that it's not about getting things to go your way. It's about stepping out into the world and seeing what way things could go, and looking at different options and alternatives and saying, well, maybe I'll try to go down this way. And then you take a couple steps, and then maybe you discover something new about that path, that maybe it's something that's compatible with what you're looking for. Maybe it's something that is a good way for someone else to get what they want and for you to get what you want, and there could be an exchange of money there. Maybe you go down that path and you say, well, doesn't look like anybody wants to give me money for that. It doesn't look like that's something that is going to be mutually beneficial for me and my prospective client. And it's just about stepping down these things and saying, oh, okay, well, there's nothing here, right? When you do at the botanical garden that's really close to here, there's this live or life-size walk-through maze, and it's made of bushes of some sort. I think they're boxwoods or something like that. But you walk in, and the idea is you walk around these narrow little paths until you find your way to the center, and then once you get to the center, then you got to find your way back out. And what's interesting is as you go down these paths, you occasionally will come to a dead end. And the thing that's so interesting about that is when you're doing a maze and you come to a dead end, what do? We just turn around and then you go off in a different direction, and you try turning right where you turn left, or left where you turn right. I know I did that backwards, but you just go and try and find a different path. You just go try to find a path that works. You don't necessarily give up or say, you don't come to that dead end and say, well, I'm never going to get through this maze. I might as well just sit down here on the floor and cry or whatever. You just go back, and then you go try to figure out a different way. And that is the approach that will successfully eventually get you through the maze. And it's also the approach that allows you to successfully start a business. And it's the only way to do it and to be successful. When you get your mind right about it, that's the most important thing, is when you get your mind right about it, when you hit that dead end, it's no longer frustrating. It's just, oh, okay, that's what happened there. Well, then I need to back up, and I need to try going a different way. And you do that a couple of times, and eventually you do that a couple of times, you do that a couple of dozen times, maybe you do it a couple hundred times. It's not about this one thing has to work, right? You would never go into that maze saying, oh, this has to work. Like this, I have my plan figured out, I know which way I want to go, and it absolutely has to work out. So that's kind of the overarching idea behind how to deal with things that don't go the way you expect them to. I had an experience over the weekend that I record these shows on Mondays, and I had over the weekend I was working on a project, and it's kind of what inspired me to do this episode of the show, because when basically if you're watching on YouTube, you see I'm sitting next to this dresser. It's a 1950s dresser that I bought at a salvage shop. It needed some work, and I was looking to refinish it. And I had a lot of different ideas for how I wanted it to work and how I wanted it to look. And I tried a number of different ways. I tried to strip the old finish off. That wasn't working. There was a really deep finish in it. It's actually called a pickling stain. But there was all kinds of things that was causing it to not go the way that I initially had planned on it going. Now, I really enjoy working on furniture pieces and doing this sort of thing, so I had a lot of fun with the process. I was able to try a couple of different things. It wasn't quite getting to where I wanted it to be. I ultimately decided that I was going to just cover it up and paint it, and then do a satin finish on top of the paint. And what's interesting was I had this leftover blue paint that I thought, well, I'm not sure this is going to be great, but I think it's going to be pretty good. I think it's going to give it a really sleek, kind of a modern look, and it's going to make it kind of interesting and cool being in this blue shade. And I put the paint on it, and the paint ended up being quite a bit lighter than I thought it was going to be. So kind of rather than having that sophisticated modern look that it had, when I initially looked at it, I said, you know what, this actually looks more like it needs to have Winnie the Pooh decals on it and be in a kid's room. And this was not my intent. My intent was not to create a dresser for a kid's room. My intent was to create a dresser for my room. But it ended up that it was, as I was putting the paint on and then finish on, I was like, this is really a lot brighter and kind of more childlike than I was really going for in the process. And then I got to thinking, well, you know what? Okay, it's not horrendous, so I will just keep going with it. I'll stick with it, and maybe I'll use it for a while, and then maybe I'll put it on Craigslist and somebody will buy it for their kids' room, or maybe my niece will be back in the area at the time and she'll need it, or maybe one of my friends with kids would like to have a dresser. They could put Princess if it's a girl, or Winnie the Pooh if it's a boy, or Power Rangers or whatever stickers on it, and it'd be a great kid's dresser. So, you know, I wasn't getting what I wanted. I wasn't getting that sort of sophisticated modern look that I was looking for. I ended up getting what I thought was going to be kind of a kid's look, and I said, okay, well, that's fine. I can deal with that. There's still going to be a great home for this dresser. It's still going to be a great piece, and it's just maybe not going to be my piece. Well, then I got the finish completed on it, and then I put the hardware back on it, and I also brought it into the room where it was going to be, where it would finally live, and I put it against this brick wall, and now I'm like, wow, I really like it. It actually doesn't look childlike anymore, now that it's got the hardware on, and now that it's kind of in the environment where it's going to be. I think it looks really darn good. The more I look at it, the more I like it, and my intent was to sort of talk about when things don't go the way that you expect them to. In other words, me ending up with this child's dresser instead of a sophisticated adult dresser. But the more I look at it, it's funny because I initially thought I was going to have this adult-like sophisticated piece of furniture. Then I ended up with what I thought was going to be a child's piece of furniture, and then I got okay with that, and then I've come back around to, I actually now have a piece that I really, really love. It did not really turn out anything the way I thought it was going to, but it ultimately turned out very good in the end. And it's just a matter of, look, you know, you just gotta be okay with the outcome not being what you expect. And when you get your mind right, you are able to just roll with it and flow with it. Just as I said, you know what, if this doesn't turn out the way I want and it's too kid looking, then I will just sell it or give it to one of my friends who has kids, and it'll work out great that way as well. So the really cool thing about that is that it ended up coming around, and I ended up sort of getting the result that I wanted, which was a nice piece of furniture for my bedroom. But you know, I won't say that throughout the process, as I was painting this the other day, that I didn't a couple of times think, you know, maybe I ought to just throw this whole thing in the trash and just be done with this entire thing. And that thought certainly crossed my mind a couple of times, but I pushed through and I said, you know what, let's just see what happens. Let's keep pushing through and let's see what happens. And I'm really, really happy with the result. And I thought it was such a great metaphor for when you are in that situation where you're pushing forward, you're doing something in your business, and you're looking at it and you're saying, this isn't working the way I wanted it to. This isn't giving me the result that I wanted it to give me. But if you keep that positive attitude and you keep your mind open to possibilities, then it always ends up working out. And you know, I like to say there's no such thing as failure, because yes, things always don't work out. I should say things very frequently or almost always don't work out the way you expect them to. But when you've got that positive attitude, you've got that attitude of possibility instead of that attitude of fear and worry and concern, then you are in this great place where you're able to say, okay, that didn't go the way I wanted it to, but let's see what positive can come out of this. And just like walking through that maze, you always got to be looking at figuring out, okay, well, how can I make this work? And sometimes, of course, that means abandoning course, right? So at some point, that might have meant just putting this thing on Craigslist and cutting my losses and selling it for, I don't know, $100 or whatever it would have gone for. But the important thing is you don't have to know exactly when you need to do this or when you need to do that or when it's the right decision to stop or the right decision to keep going. Your intuition will tell you that, and we have talked about that before, and we'll talk about that some more. But the important thing is just to remember that it just doesn't matter. You just got to keep going, and you got to be okay with whatever results you get, and you got to just figure out a way to roll with it, because not only does that make you successful, it also makes you happy. You know, the longer I do this, the more business and life are completely inextricable. And that is not a bad thing. That is a good thing, because what it really means is that my business is conforming more and more to my life and what I really want out of life. So for that reason, I mean, that's such a great reason to always feel like you need to be doing it in a way that is continuously making you happy and at peace with what you're doing and enjoying what you're doing. Now, if you found that to be helpful and you would really like to just kind of get a deeper dive into some of these concepts and a deeper dive into a really simple process that allows you to go out into the world and try different things and figure out what you can actually get people to pay you money for, then you might want to check out the Kickstart program. You can get more information about that over at howtoquitworking.com/kickstart. Now, if you're really serious about getting some one-on-one help and you would like me to get on the phone or Skype with you on a regular basis and we can actually work together on getting your business going, but more importantly, getting you in the right place mentally so that you can be extremely successful in your business, then go over to howtoquitworking.com/coaching and get more information about coaching. I look forward to maybe talking to you about coaching, maybe seeing you in the Kickstart program, and I definitely look forward to talking to you next time on the How to Quit Working Show.
Thanks for joining us on the How to Quit Working Show. Tune in next time when we'll talk to another amazing person just like you who is now living the ultimate life of freedom and doing it on their terms. If you want to learn how to quit working and get these episodes delivered directly to you, visit howtoquitworkingshow.com.